Got a post here from brycej. brycej is flying a... Oh, what copter is this? I have no idea. I don't recognize this frame. I've seen it a couple other places. It's pretty spiffy little frame. Got X geometry, which, as you point out, is slightly being thrown off by the GoPro. The GoPro is raising the CG, I think, more than anything else. I can see that it's tipped a little forward. But very interesting to look at your eye gain, maybe, and see the effect of all that high up weight, probably making it want to tip into, when it pitches forward, probably want to make it tip more forward. So you'll probably have, I guess, negative eye gain. Anyway, I don't know. We'll see if we come around to that. Very interesting frame. And just sort of looking for a general feedback, no specific complaints. So let's go ahead and take a look. The first thing I like to do, a long time ago, I once said, I'm going to stop looking at gyros. Gyros always look pretty good. And I never did. So if you have a long memory, you can tell me I was wrong about that. I just keep finding it useful to look at the gyro traces. And we can see here, your gyro traces are very, very, very thin. Very thin. Clean. In fact, so suspiciously clean. And that makes me want to look at your log and see what your filtering is at. So we've got gyro soft LPF on, as you would hope, with Betaflight. If you're flying Betaflight and you're not flying the soft LPF, I don't know, do you go to Outback and order a salad? I don't know. So that's good. D-term cut hertz 40, that's normal. What about your gyro LPF? Let's see here. $188. So I gotta tell you, try taking that to off. Set gyro LPF off. I mean, it's nice that it's on 188. This is so clean. Yeah, I would not hesitate to turn your gyro LPF off there. Set gyro LPF equals off. I would not hesitate, as clean as this is. You get a little snappier response, a little more locked in feel, a little more noise, but it's got such a small amount of noise, I wouldn't even hesitate. Okay, so then let's move on and look at your PID, and I like to start on the roll axis. And I like to start looking at places where you raise the throttle, like here. Throttle's going up. You can see, you're about to do a roll, so fine. We'll forget about the roll for now. But you can see that as your throttle goes up, there's very little activity on your P term. See, your P term is very docile here. It is not large in magnitude. So a large swing would be high above and below the axis, and this is not that. Your D term is also very docile, but I like to tune P and get P in the ballpark before I start fine-tuning D. I like to leave D a little bit low. So your D is at 12, and that's a good low value for tuning. You probably want it higher than that when you're done tuning, but for now, that's a good place for it to be. Your P is at 1.2 on pitch and 1.2 on roll. Let's just take a look at your pitch axis. By the way, having your P gain the same on pitch and roll would normally not be correct for like an H-style copter, but for a pure X with very, very centralized weight distribution, that is a correct thing. Very docile also on P here, on pitch. Your pitch is very docile. Also, notice your I it's positive. Now that's interesting because positive means pitch forward, I believe. It's very interesting that your copter seems to have a tendency to pitch back. That is being counteracted by the I term. I don't know what the deal is with that. I'm not going to worry too much about it, but it's very interesting. Your P term is also, again, not super active here. We're not seeing a lot of sort of wiggling and jingling activity. It's very docile here. In magnitude, it's a little bigger. It's moving a little bit more in magnitude, but overall, we're still not seeing anything close to like oscillations. Here's something like a little bit of an oscillation. I think that your P gains are low on both pitch and roll, and I would consider bringing them up to, let's say, 1.5, and maybe see how that goes. Okay. Now, you asked about D-term spike, and I believe you've got RC smoothing off. Yeah, you have RC smoothing off. So D-term spike, this is D-term spike right here. D-term kick, rather. It makes those little spikes in the graph. And here, let's see if we can find a more extreme. And here, right here, this sort of shark tooth pattern, that's D-term kick. RC smoothing is supposed to be mostly taking care of that. Except that you've got it off. Okay, great. Yeah, that's what I thought. So let's see what you are using for your receiver. Parallel PWM minus, feature minus, RX serial, great. And serial provider is S-Bus. Okay, so I've been going back and forth on this myself. I also fly S-Bus. I've been going back and forth, and I think I'm going to turn RC smoothing on. And as I showed in one of my other videos on my channel recently, S-Bus has like 9 milliseconds of latency, something like that. So if you turn RC smoothing on, that goes to 18 milliseconds. I think that I will take an extra 9 milliseconds of latency in exchange for smoother motor out traces. If we look at your motors, we can see right here, this is the D-term spike going into the motor traces. And here's another case. So that can cause the motors to get a little rough. It doesn't have a big effect on flight performance, frankly. If you listen very carefully, you can hear it. It probably is not making much of a difference. And if you want to leave RC smoothing off, go ahead. It's not going to hurt anything. But personally, I'm like 9 milliseconds. I don't think I really care about that. And I like the idea that those are a little smoother and stressing the motors just a little less. So you can go either way. As long as you're using serial, you can go either way. If you're using CPPM, I think RC smoothing should definitely be off. So as far as your D term goes, D term on pitch is quite low. D term on roll is quite low. And so we really don't have a lot to do there until we get the P more in the ballpark. But if you were to say that P was where you want it, right? If you say, no, I'm going to leave P where it is, then your D is right now at, I think it was 12. 12 and 12. Let's try taking that up to 16 and see a little more activity on the D term. You can see that even when P is sort of active and moving around, D is mostly just kind of sitting there, not coming off the line very much. Only when the D term kick comes in does D actually become active. And that's because in those moments when the RC input is stepping, there's a momentary infinite response. It changes. The derivative is infinite for one sample, and that's where the D-term kick comes from. So with regards to D-term kick, it doesn't even matter what as long as your D-term is non-zero, you're going to get it. But the rest of the time, when you're not having D-term kick, the D-term is very, very docile, not doing very much at all. I'd like to see it more active. It'll really sharpen things up. So that's what I'd say. Work up your P gain until you start to see some hints of oscillation in the traces. You should not be able to see or hear it yet in your HD video or line of sight, but you will start to see the P term become more active in the traces, especially at high throttle. And that's the point where you say, okay, I've gone enough. And then start bringing D up until the copter feels right and the D term trace is a little more active. Okay, that's what I say about that. Let's just take a quick look at your yaw. Can't forget yaw. Yeah, so here we're starting to see more signs of activity and oscillation on the yaw axis, and that's not uncommon. So this here it kind of looks like D-term kick, although you're not moving your yaw very much. I'm not sure if that's kick or not. But like when we get here and we start to see some regularity here, right, in these oscillations, that's the kind of activity I'm talking about. This is not a problem unless it gets worse. But this is maybe if this wasn't the yaw axis, I would think about knocking my P down like just a smidge. But we can see here that P is active, but is not hyperactive or having hard oscillations. And of course, the D here is almost non-existent. So your yaw D can definitely come up. Now here, what's going on here? Oh, that's those kicks. Hang on. Yeah, you just got a big strong input here with some D-term kick. So don't worry about that. See, we got a little bit of a chicken and the egg here. Your P is twitching around, but it's a little hard to judge which is causing it. Your D term could be jerking the copter around, making the P term respond. There's a feedback loop there. This, I think, is definitely kick. This I'm not so sure about. So I would not raise P on yaw, and I might drop P just a smidge on yaw, like 0.1 perhaps, maybe even less than that. Yaw almost always looks pretty good, except, like just every so often you get something like this. Your D term on yaw can definitely come up as well. I think. That's what I think. All right. Well, hope that was helpful. And as always, happy flying.